Hi there, I'm Scott, and this is GreatScott Knitting. We're in the middle of Vlognukkah. Well, that's an overstatement. We're really still at the very beginning of Vlognukkah. We are only on day 7 of December. Lots of stuff going on today. Lots of interesting things going on today. So welcome in. There's so much I want to unpack about today. So welcome in. If you are new to this channel, hold on to your seats because this is going to be kind of a crazy episode. I don't even know where it's going yet. I have so much going on in my brain, so I want to try and unpack it all. But welcome. I hope you enjoy what you find here. I'm going to have some recommendations for everybody. For those of you who are returning, thank you for coming back. Thank you for your support. And now is a great opportunity for me to say to everyone, take this just quick moment to do something for someone else. And that someone else is me. And that thing that you can do for me is click on the subscribe button if you haven't already. If you have subscribed to this channel, thank you so much for your support. And if you haven't, consider clicking on that button. What that does is it helps me grow my presence in YouTube, have a greater impact on the world, puts my name out there a little bit more with other people. Now, here's the deal. I don't care about the monetization. What I want to do is to share my passion, my excitement for knitting and for fiber and for yarn, as well as my passion for helping other people be more effective and successful at the things that bring them joy. And if they learn a little bit of something from me, that's going to be so cool. And I think it's going to be great, because it maybe what is happening on my channel may be very different from what you get on any other knitting channel. You're going to get the knitting, you're going to get the fiber, but you're going to get some other stuff too. So consider clicking on subscribe, especially if you enjoy what you get here. Especially if you're joining right now during Vlognukkah, Vlogmas, whatever you want to call this period of time that leads up to these joyous holidays where we share our love and generosity with each other. So welcome in. So a couple things. It is December 7th. This is Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day, the day upon which our country really for the first time in history was attacked militarily from the outside on our own soil by a foreign power. It was a devastating day militarily. It was a devastating day for our country. And it truly is for our country a day which will live in infamy. It really set that event really set our nation on a completely different trajectory than it had been on prior to that, which has really meant all the difference really to our country for well on to 50 plus years. Have been impacted by the events of that day and the events that followed. Many of I didn't lose any family members in that event or the conflict that followed, but I do have family members who did fight in World War II, who served in the military in the conflicts that really kind of came out of and followed World War II. And I say that the conflicts that followed, like Korea and Vietnam, I think were born out of the the energy and the ideals and the passions that were born and formed on this day. So I think this day really, the Pearl Harbor event really created a lot of what the United States became in the mid 20th century and later. And to some extent, we are struggling to live up to the ideals that were created in the time that followed. So there's that. So to anyone who may have lost loved ones on this day, at that time, or that lost loved ones in World War II, and the various events around that, we thank you for the sacrifice, the service, and we mourn in this day with you. Closer to home, for me, today was the day that I had a medical procedure done, which is something that really anyone over the age of 50, potentially even over the age of 45, oh, screw that. Really, anybody should consider having this done on a regular basis, be it maybe not annually, but every, 4 to 5 years. This is something you should probably do. And that is to have a colonoscopy. About 5 years ago, I lost my brother Brian, who was 54 years old, to stage 4 colon cancer. He had a wife. He had raised a family of 4 children. He had grandchildren. He's very active in his church. Huge booming voice, amazing singer, talented drummer, big into music and sharing his passion for music, for the church, for his family, with other people. And lost him, I'm going to say primarily due to an extremely flawed medical system in the United States, which makes it difficult to have routine screenings because we don't have a healthcare system that is free and accessible for all. That being said, if you have a health insurance, check to see if your health insurance covers routine screenings and go get a colonoscopy. It can screen you for cancers. It can screen you for other types of things that happen in your gut. And you will be amazed, even though the preparation for a colonoscopy is not particularly fun, you will lose about 10 pounds in that day, because it basically flushes your system, which is probably not a bad thing to do every once in a while. I wouldn't make it a common thing because it's not particularly fun to do. Basically, you spend the day in your bathroom as you eliminate everything in your guts, and so that they can put a scope up your behind to check out all the pipe work. And for myself, my pipe work is in good shape. Couple of polyps that they found that they believe are benign, but they will have them checked out. I'm really kind of oversharing that, but whatever. I'm kind of an open book. So Um, do your family a favor, do yourself a favor. If whenever you have the opportunity to do routine screenings for things like cancer, like if you're a woman, screw that. If get a mammogram, because men can get breast cancer too. It's just not as commonly known, but it happens, and it's still devastating. Not to mention the fact that there's probably a stigma that would follow a man getting breast cancer. But get yourself checked out. Do routine screenings for prostate cancer, colon cancer, breast cancer, any of these other things wherein it can basically give you early detection around things that can kill you if you don't do something about it. That's my PSA around that. So that's what I was up to today. So I spent part of my morning completely comatose, which is always interesting. But yeah, so I finally get to eat again. I didn't get to eat really half of my morning, and yesterday it was like Jello and bouillon. So, ooh, that's exciting. All right. So what? Okay, I'm trying to figure where I want to go next. I'm going to pause here, and because this is a knitting channel, I do need to talk about my knitting and where I'm at. I have been monogamous over the past couple of days on my on the shawl that I am knitting for. It's a gift knit for a friend of my husband's, and this is the Easy Goes It DK shawl, and I am cruising right along. Okay, so I think I was just coming out of the eyelet section into another garter ridge, and I finished the garter ridge, gone into the stockinette stripes, and we're back in the garter ridge, heading towards another eyelet section. So things go, the inches don't get added to it as much in length because the width is also growing, and so that's why it doesn't look like it's growing as quickly, but there's a lot more stitches to go through a row. And I've just started my second ball of fiber for this shawl. So cruising along with that. And really that's all I've been doing the past couple of days in terms of fiber related goodness. Now, today, so there's two more things we're going to do before I kind of sign off of this portion of this episode. One thing I'm going to tell you about another person's channel and an episode that's happening right now on another person's channel. It was just released today, and it's absolutely amazing. And then the second thing, which will be in a sense related to it, but the Scott Talk, TED Talk, whatever you want to call it. I don't know anyone named Ted, so I'm going to call them Scott Talks from this point forward. Today's Scott Talk will be in relation to that. Irina Shaar has this wonderful YouTube channel called Fiberchats. On this channel, she conducts interviews with different fiber artists, knitters, crocheters, weavers, spinners, dyers, podcast people, you name it. But they usually all have something to do with the fiber arts, and talking about what they do, what excites them, what's their passion, all those types of things. They are always interesting, And the nice thing is she interviews people um, that are famous, that you might have heard of, as well as, just everyday normal people just out there who enjoy the art and the craft of knitting and crocheting and playing with fiber. So it's almost, I mean, every single one of them have been of interest. I'm not going to say almost always, because no, every single episode she puts out, the person is interesting, the conversation is worthwhile, and I've always gotten something out of it and appreciated and been glad that I spent the time to watch. So if you have not connected to Fiberchats with Irina Shaar, go as soon as you're done with this episode. Go over there now. Now I'm going to link her channel and a specific episode in the show notes. Now this specific episode is of interest, and I'm pointing it out for a reason. Now, that specific episode that I am going to refer you to is what her most recent episode. It came out today, and the reason I'm not looking at you is I'm actually bringing it up on my screen because I want to make sure that I have it, and that I am being very specific and candid with this item. So her most recent episode just came out today. She is interviewing Dr. Srini Pillay. Yes, Dr. Srini Pillay, who is a Harvard-trained psychiatrist and brain researcher. So you're like, great, where's the fiber part in this? Well, they don't talk about specifically knitting. They don't talk about fiber. They don't talk about yarn. What they talk about is still pertinent to us. What they talk about, and she interviews Dr. Pillay about things that challenge us. Like when we get our creativity block, when we have knitter's block, which is similar to like writer's block, that creativity block where it's like, I just don't know what to knit. I'm burnt out with knitting, or I'm burnt out with crochet. Or I'm burnt out with yarn dyeing. I'm burnt out on podcasting. And you just don't have the drive to do it anymore. They talk about what it is that can cause that and how to break out of that cycle, as well as talking about what motivates us, how we can use our focus to focus on the things we want to get done. How do we deal with various emotions that come up when we have either critiques of our work that we don't agree with, or just all these different types of things. It's about an hour's long conversation, but it is just full of wonderful, amazing information, of which you do not want to miss it. I'm telling you, give a gift to yourself right now to give yourself the gift right now to go watch that episode. It is she's titled it Truth Talks, and it's Creators Burnout with Dr. Srini Pillay. Very wonderful interview. I'm serious. You do not want to miss this. It absolutely is worthwhile. So let me give you a little taste. Where are my notes? My notes are down here. I took like 3 pages of notes. This may tell you exactly why I think this is just so amazing. So one of the things he talks about is a concept called, which he coins or calls, existential confidence. And in this part, he's talking about ways to stay positive. Um, sometimes when you are, kind of get stuck in this maybe negative spiral, which then prevents you from being able to create. And the way he defines this concept of existential confidence is the ability to stay committed to a possibility that is not yet a reality, with the full belief that we can deliver on it, even if we haven't done so in the past. I just love that idea, that Dr. Srini, Dr. Pillay brings up. This idea of having that goal, having that your North Star or your mission or whatever it is you're trying to accomplish, having that clearly in your mind as your end goal, and just knowing, believing that you will attain that, and then having, I'm going to put it this way, the dogged determination to make it happen. And that might mean that you fail or make a misstep, and maybe your first try doesn't get you there, but instead of changing the goal or changing your direction, you change the method by which you try to get there. So loved this episode. So you do yourself a favor. Make this your Hanukkah gift early, your Christmas gift early, your birthday gift early. I don't care how you want to gift it to yourself, but give yourself the gift of this episode. That being said, I want to jump into the Scott talk because it is directly related. So Scott talk today is really about this idea of focus, which is really kind of where their conversation begins, is this idea of where we sometimes get burnt out because we get so focused on something, and we keep that focus there, and we get to the point where we become fatigued with that item. So maybe we reach the point where, maybe it's that sweater that you've been knitting on for 5 weeks. And have you ever had that sensation of being done with a project before you're done with the project? And sometimes that reaches the point where you just set the project aside and never get back to it. Or you get the project done and you're like, I got to take a break. And then maybe you lose that drive, that energy to go create the next thing. So that's kind of part of what I want to talk about, but it's that focus, that idea of focusing on something and then sometimes unfocusing, going into an unfocused period where you relax your brain so you're not as driven on a particular idea. Where I want to take this idea, though, of focus is this. We often focus on things that we don't have control over. And so there is a point in the conversation where Irina and Dr. Pillay talk about this. So let me put it to you this way. I took a break from podcasting over the summer. It wasn't necessarily intentional, and yet it kind of was. It just kind of grew organically out of me being very busy during my days, to where I just wasn't motivated to podcast on my weekends. So be right back. Okay, sorry about that. So I took this break, and part of part of the reasoning that I took the break was, and this is me looking back at myself, at trying to understand why there was this period of time that I did not podcast, because it really wasn't intentional. And I think it did have a little bit to do with burnout, but it also had to do with becoming a little bit obsessed with the analytics that come with the YouTube channel, and not seeing those numbers like subscribers and views and various things, not seeing them growing in a way that I saw other channels growing. And I started comparing myself to other channels and their success, and not seeing my own channel have that success, which was demotivating. Regardless of how much I tried to tell myself the numbers don't matter, the numbers began to matter. And so I lost that drive, that energy around wanting to record and have those sessions. Here's the deal. There's an aspect of those numbers that I have no control over. I can control what I put on my channel. I can control the energy I put into it. I can control sort of the programming that I do. I can control the marketing to some extent. But here's the other issue. I don't particularly like the marketing side. I want to do. I enjoy the chat with you. I enjoy the feedback I get from you. I enjoy knowing that I've made an impact on people. So that's what drives me to do these things. What I cannot particularly control is, do you watch or not? That I really cannot control. And so my TED Talk, or my Scott Talk today, is going to be around what do you control and what do you not control? And where do you spend your time, your passion, and your energy? Really, your time and your energy. Where do you spend your time and energy focused? Think of it this way. You have a circle of concern of all the things in the world and in your life that you're concerned about. So you may be concerned about the economy, the war in the Ukraine, the elections that just happened. You might be concerned about all of these different things. But how many of them do you actually have influence over? So other things that you may be concerned about are how work is going, your relationship with your boss, your relationship with your spouse. You may have concerns around those things. Now, by concern, I don't necessarily mean you're worried that they're going badly or that there's something wrong there. What I mean by concern is it's something of importance to you or something that takes up time in your mind. Now, the big question is, what do you have influence over? And then within that circle of influence, they don't even show this in this image. What do you have control over? I mean actual control, where you can make it go in one direction versus another. So there's really three circles at play here. Circle of control, circle of influence, and circle of concern. Now, your circle of concern you have no control over. Your circle of influence, however, you do, and your circle of control is of course something you have control over. So let's talk about, so the outer circles, that circle of concern, you have no control. There's very little you can do to move the needle any direction on any of the situations. Your circle of Control, which is the inner circle that's not even talked about here, is that circle that is where you actually are probably the sole person who can control whatever that concern or interest is. And I'm going to tell you who that is. You have control over one thing, and that is you. Your mind, your behavior, your thoughts, those you have control over. To some extent, also your emotions. How you feel about something is, there's a question, although oftentimes we can control how we feel about something by controlling our view of the world, what our paradigm is of a situation that causes us to feel a certain way. So we do have control over ourselves. Now, that circle of influence, I love this concept. It's not circle of control, it's the circle of influence. What do I have influence over? What can I move the needle on? So let's say I'm concerned, or one of my concerns is my relationship with my manager at work. Okay, can I control my manager? No, I cannot. He's the control over what my manager does is in my circle of concern. But is it? Can I influence how he behaves towards me by how I behave towards him? Now, I'm saying him because my manager at work happens to be of the male persuasion. So that's the only reason I'm using that terminology. So, maybe it's your spouse. Can't control your spouse, but you can control how you relate to your spouse. So you do have influence on your spouse by the choices you make. So for me, this whole idea of the circle of influence versus the circle of concern really has to do with the idea of this. Focus on the things you can do. If there's an action you can take that action. If there's nothing you can do, then you let it go and you stop worrying about it. I know that's the tough part. It's the stopping worrying about it, just because there's nothing you can do about it. But sometimes there's a little known magic concept called acceptance. Sometimes you have to accept the way things are before you can change the way things are. And maybe you can't change the way things are, but you can change how you relate to it. Or even if you relate to it. So accepting how things are may be the path towards being able to do something about it. And maybe that what you do about it is you choose to remove that thing from your life, or that person from your life, or that situation. You walk away from the situation. That's a change. That's an action that you can take that's under your control, which influences then, of course, what happens next. So my concept here is this. The best way to deal with really any challenge that you have is to use some of those tools that I've already talked about. Pause and respond based on what you want to get out of any given situation. And then in that pause, focus on those things that you can do instead of the things you can't do. And that will give you that creativity, that moment of self, using your strengths of self-awareness, imagination, conscience, and independent will to choose an action that will move things in the direction you want them to go. Therein lies your influence over those things that you have concern about. Thus ends my TED Talk. Lots to unpack today. So I hope you're having a wonderful month so far. It's been a very packed day for me. Actually, a packed couple of days for me in terms of stuff going on. But I did want to jump in because the things that have happened today are monumental enough for me that I wanted to share them with you. I hope you're getting out of all of your Vlogmas viewing and Vlognukkah viewing, these things, the joy that you look for in life, little nuggets of seeing inside of people's worlds, lives, and minds. I always find that fun. I love watching other people's holiday posts, just to see how their lives are evolving and changing and moving and growing and all those great things. And I wish for you those types of joys as well. With that, I'm going to go ahead and sign off today. At some point, I'll be jumping back in probably towards the end of this week to say hello again and show you some progress on the knitting. Let me know in chat your thoughts around the Irina Shaar episode that I'm suggesting for everyone to watch. How are things going with your holiday preparations? Let me know also your thoughts around this idea of focusing on your circle of influence, not on your circle of concern. Let me know if you have practices around that, or ideas around how that has helped you, or even challenge me on it. I'm okay. I'm open to hearing challenges too. So with that, I bid you a fond until next time. So may you have peace in your home and the fullness of joy for all who dwell there. Bye.